we're in something new. We've not been here before. Much has been lost, but we're finding out more about what matters most, our purpose, and whether we'll drift further apart or draw closer. Together. This series of podcasts is intended to bring some perspective in this time of great change. It's unrehearsed and largely unedited. It's just people telling their stories about how they're managing right now. Some are helpful, others are just fun, but they're all intended to foster one thought. In a time when we're being asked to stay apart, there are ways that we can stay together. And today I bring you Julio Andrade.
Julio Andrade. I live in, that's my name, Julio Andrade. I live in Pleasantville, New York, and I'm a freelancer. I have a web development company that I own. I also do some freelance on my own, so I'm doing multiple things during this time. And I'm healthy so far, knock on wood, and I've got two beautiful kids,
Nice.
10-year-old girl and a 6-year-old boy, and they are doing great, and we're doing the best we can today.
Yeah, we've had a very long chat before we actually pressed record, and we covered quite a lot of ground. So we'll see how much of it we can retread. But the purpose of this little mini series that we're throwing together is just to kind of shed some light on some of the more positive aspects. It's really easy to get bogged down, as in fact we probably did prior to this call. Easy to get bogged down with everything that's going on, but yet there are little chinks of light. There's a whole bunch of stuff which is happening which is slightly more positive, maybe a change of mindset, a different routine, a way of doing things, reconnecting with friends and relatives, those kind of things. So Julio's going to give us some of the things that he's realized over the last period since he's been stuck at home. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So the things I've learned since being here at home, I'll preface this saying I have been an entrepreneur for 20 years, so I have been working from home most of that time. So the work from home part has been actually a breeze for me. It's a normal part of my life. But what I've learned is, number one is the way I look at how my kids are educated. So now that I have to teach both of them when they're here, I have to really address the questions, and really there's no one I can really pass this off to. So now I'm more invested in the way that my daughter, who's 10, learns math and how she's being taught math. So things like how my kids learn is very important now, because if they're tactile learners and we're doing everything online, that's a problem. So I need to find ways to teach them, give them the tools to learn tactilely. So luckily that has not come out that they're tactile learners. So they seem to be visual. They seem to lean more towards visual learning. So that's been good.
Yeah, that's a nice realization in this particular era. Yeah.
Yes. And also, however, that said, we do have currently an issue with our online communications, with the hacking that some people have experienced with Zoom, and so we're going through that right now. So those have been put on pause for the moment, and it was suggested that we can do some support services using a phone, and I said, well, that's really not going to be helpful, because auditory is not how she learns.
Yeah.
So we'll have to figure out another way to.
Did you ever kind of get involved with your kids learning prior to this, or is this some sort of new, interesting revelation? Was it always the teacher's job to educate?
Always the teachers. I have a best friend who homeschools, and he had asked me, and I remember a few years ago, he says, well, how does she learn? And I said, what do you mean? So he's the one that kind of introduced me to this years ago, and now it's all coming back to me. It's like, oh yeah, this is really important now.
Yeah.
To the point where I have in my more joyous moments and thinking I got a handle on this. Like, you know what? Maybe I could homeschool. Maybe I could pull that off. I've seen people. I know there are bloggers out there. They do this. They homeschool and they still have jobs. So maybe I could homeschool. So it's an enormous undertaking, but it is a thought in my head at times. Like, I could homeschool because maybe what she needs and maybe what my son might need is and benefit from, more is homeschooling.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's all been thrust upon all of us. I've got kids and I'm spending so much more time with my children. Like you say, you discover all sorts of interesting ways that they are picking up their learning. But just looking back, when we're all a little bit older and we're at that period of time where we're reflecting back, I'm sure that this will become, a real feature of everybody's consciousness, a real moment in time where everybody can look back to and say, well, what happened to you? Where were you when? And I don't think anybody's probably going to regret being in close proximity with their family members, or at least I hope not. I'll be looking back and thinking, do you remember that time when we were just together for months on end, and although we fell out and things, we really got to know one another in a much deeper way. And I got to teach you. Do you remember that? I was teaching you for a bit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, thanks for that. There were some other points as well.
So the other ones are how much time I really have. As an entrepreneur, you learn quickly how much time you really have. And I think somewhere along the line, I forgot. And now when I'm working, making lesson plans, cooking, going to the store, doing all the things that I normally do on top of all these new things. And because it's not just teaching, it's keeping these kids engaged and entertained throughout the day. The day doesn't end. There's no end in school. There's no transitions anymore. There's no, I guess, physical transitions, which may buy you some time. It's like they're always here. They're always here. They work 5 feet away and they play at this 5 feet. So that's the transition. What are you going to do with them? What are you going to do for them? We've been doing puzzles, and which has been so much fun. I love puzzles, and I'm so excited that this is happening at a time when my son, who's 6, is old enough to really manage the smaller pieces, because he's been able to do the small pieces for a couple of years. It's just the managing of them, it's like throwing them everywhere. So now we have them all in one place, and our dining table for a long time, for a few days, was taken up by this big Harry Potter 300-piece puzzle. And that was what we did during educational breaks. Was okay, it's puzzle time. You got to do 10 minutes of puzzle, and then you can have a snack.
Nice.
So
yeah.
So puzzles have been great. So we've been talking about what new puzzles we're going to get. But that's all to say. Like, how much time do I have? Because they go to sleep, and then I have to do work, or I get up early, and I get up early to do work, either for myself or for them. And it's like, wow. And it has to count. It can be, but it's can't be half-assed. It has to be full on. And so there's a lot of time there. So, and I'm using it. So that's been great.
Are you sort of suggesting that you kind of had to reevaluate the amount of hours in the day? You can in the past you'd squash your working day into 6-8 hours or whatever it might be, but now it's kind of spread out in all sorts of different little pots. Some late at night, some early in the morning, because you've had to, really relearn what a day is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think when you say relearn, you have to relearn and remember how much you actually can get done in the time that you have.
Yeah.
So, in all of this craziness that I've described for myself, I've actually started baking bread. And baking bread is a process. It's a process. And I went, it's kind of this thing. I think it's one of the things that I've latched onto to say, I have been guilty of in my life getting excited about something like that, and then saying it didn't work out the first time. Like, oh, forget it. I'm not gonna. But instead, it's like it failed miserably the first time. The second time got better. The third time was surprisingly not very good. But it's like I decided, it's like, that's it. I am going to master this.
Yes.
I'm going to master baking bread.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make two breads. I'm going to make the no-knead bread, and I'm going to learn how to make sourdough bread. I'm going to walk out of this at the very least. I know I'll walk out with a lot, but I will not walk out with mastering how to make bread. Which, to note, I am gluten-free, so I'm making bread for them, not for me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think it's a double, not a double. It's a stacked thing for me because I'm making it for them. For like that's like we always talk about, especially in the entrepreneurial world, like, oh, you got to do things for other people. You got to make it so it serves other people, not serves yourself, but serve other people. It's like, I love to cook. I love to be in the kitchen. And there's a part of me that is very selfish. I make these things for me. My kids aren't great eaters right now. And I want to make stuff for me, and this is for them. This is all for them. And I've, in my mind, I'm like, I'm making this for their mom. I'm going to start making bread for my neighbors. I grab flour all the time when I go to the store. There's just stacks of flour in here.
Yeah.
So it's great. And I'm so excited to really master this thing and be able to share this with other people. So
this is such an interesting time as well because it's stretching out in front of us and we don't know how long it's going to last. We're really embracing the big projects, and bread making is a good example of that, because whilst the individual loaf takes a few hours, it's not over, is it? Because the next one you can perfect it, make it better. We've done the same. My kids have picked up drawing again, and that's a great one because it's a never-ending thing, and you can do an hour on it and they get this little piece, and then tomorrow another hour and start again and improve something, and it because there is no kind of end in sight. It's not like we know that 15 days, 2 weeks, a month, a year, who knows, right? It's good to have these things, these projects which have no point of ending. It's not like you've built a website and you've handed it over, it's done, move on. Yeah. Thank you. That's another insight as well. That's great. What are your other ones?
And the other one is in all that is the self-care. It's the self-care. I've put in a lot of work to support us in every possible way, but also my own self-care has taken a back seat. And I know it's something I've worked on for many years to bring to the front, to bring forward. But now it's kind of taking a back seat. And I see, for all my progress in this time, I see how important it is and how it needs to be always at the front, because I'm always better at all the things I described when I make some time for myself.
Yeah.
And as we talked about earlier, I know that self-care thing I feel like that self-care statement can be somewhat intimidating, because then people their brains start to run like, oh, I have to get a massage every week. I have to go for a run 4 times a week. And I have to, I really need to get back to the gym 5 days a week. It's like, it doesn't have to, that would be great. That would be wonderful. Those things are very time consuming. The things I just named, they have a certain amount of cost, and right now you can't go to the gym anyway.
Yeah.
So, but it can look just like, and it doesn't have to be meditation either, because meditation is intimidating and it's not for everyone. Even though I do meditate, it could be a walk.
Yeah.
It could be a 10-minute walk. It could be a 20-minute walk, a half an hour walk. It could just be a walk. Without your phone, or at least not engaging with your phone. It could be a walk with your phone, talking to someone who you haven't talked to in a while. That, I did that last week, and that just felt so good, just to take a break from all of this madness. And it's something we need to have all the time, whether there's COVID-19 or not. You need to give yourself that time, that tiny little piece of a break. Is how you're going to just be better at everything else you're worried about or excited about doing.
Yeah, that's really nice advice. And I know for my part, when we do have enforced breaks and everybody's kind of off doing their own choice of whatever it might be, it really does help. It's not a panacea. It's not a magic bullet or anything, but it definitely helps you come back feeling a little bit more normal and more engaged in whatever it is that you've got to do. And of course, at this time, there's a lot of stress, and so just balancing things frequently, often, is a good plan. Yeah, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Number 4.
So number 4, we were talking about this earlier, and I think what I found is validating people's experience. When people call and talk, something I've always worked, not always, but for a number of years now I've worked on, is to be able to hold space for people when I talk to them or when they talk to me. And I want to, during this time, there's a lot of stress, like you just said, and I want to be sure that I'm validating people, and I know that it's really important to hold that space for them. So when people call or express their stress in a moment, whether it be a long-term thing, like I'm worried about the long-term effects of all this, or today I'm having a moment, just validating the experience and just how important that really, really is, to just stop myself from trying to fix what's happening for them and just listen.
Mm-hmm.
And once I've given them that space, and then they can breathe, because I'm breathing, and I'm breathing with them in that space, and then they feel better and I feel better.
Yeah, I think at this time more than any, our normal methods of kind of balancing ourselves and getting things off your chest, those people might be really distant from you now, and so it might be like we talked about before we press record. It might be a text message that you send to somebody, or it might be a quick phone call or a Zoom chat or whatever it might be. And having time for others and really listening to what it is that they're trying to say is good. And it can be difficult because there's commotion going on, but maybe maybe that's one of the things that you can do, is set aside a bit of the time to have a chat with somebody that would benefit from spending a few minutes with you and getting something off their chest. Yeah. Wow, these are great insights. We're trying to keep these episodes reasonably short, so sadly we're gonna probably just end it there. I really appreciate that. I think some of that was very poignant and thoughtful and insightful. So thanks for sharing. Yeah, right. Thank you for sharing those. I really appreciate it. At a time when we're staying apart, creative ways of staying together are so important. I hope that you found something of use here, a new idea, or perhaps just a smile. Stay safe, stay together.